Morning. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Lisa Butler and I work for the Human Service Agency. You folks refer to it as the Department of Social Services. I just want to clarify that our Human Service Agency umbrella includes the Department of Social Services and the Department of Mental Hygiene. So there's a bigger umbrella there, and I want to make sure that I capture all of that when I'm talking today. So when people think about our agency, I know that primarily they think about our TA division, which is mandated to provide benefits to folks that are in transition and needing some assistance. But quite honestly, the umbrella of the Human Service Agency does cover a lot, and I'm going to cheat a little bit with my brochure to make sure that I don't miss anybody. But the Children and Family Services Division is also something that sometimes people think about when they think about the Department of Social Services. So that division is responsible for protecting children, obviously. They provide all our foster care, adoption services, all of those services are under that umbrella. TA is not only cash benefits, but it's still doing some Medicaid, and it's also responsible for our food stamp program. There's a few other pieces in there that are also captured, such as disability services and assisting with connecting those. Our child support division is our child support enforcement to make sure that folks that have child support needs are getting their payments, paternity establishments, those sorts of things are done in that division. We have a legal division that supports all of the different aspects of what we do in the building. Obviously, a lot of things connected with TA and fair hearings, as well as our children's services division in terms of the court access, all of that. Temporary assistance I already touched on. Children's Integrated Services is also under the umbrella, and they're providing wraparound services to support children from entering either higher levels of the mental health system or higher levels of the juvenile justice system in terms of our PINS population, which is person in need of supervision. So children who may be not attending school or may also not be doing what they need to do in the home are could be a court access. We divert them from those sorts of situations. So there's a lot of positions under that umbrella too. So I'll talk about a few of them that we have open. Mental hygiene actually oversees all of the community services in the disability fields. So that includes drug and alcohol. That includes mental health itself, and it also includes the developmental disability services. So there's an umbrella there. There aren't a lot of staff under that. That's contract oversight primarily. So all those agencies in the community have to report to the Director of Community Services, RDCS. So that's kind of the umbrella of our agency. I want to look at my cheat sheet here. So we have about 200 employees under that umbrella. It's just shy of that. It's 192. I looked this morning. So we have about 192 employees under the umbrella. So entry level wise, I'm just going to list some of the positions that that generally are our entry port for moving up in our organization. So they include our account clerk position. That's in our administrative services generally, although there's some positions that can be in other places. And that's our financial support. So, they pay our contractors and do that kind of thing. Our case aides, that's the position that supports our children and family services staff, our caseworkers in that division. That's an entry-level position supporting those folks, so they sometimes are assisting the caseworker with some paperwork or helping to transport children and families from to an appointment, or they're assisting with systems. There's several systems. I'm not going to name them all because it would be kind of crazy, but there's systems that they can do some data entry and things like that in as well. But they're basically a support, and it's a fairly new position for us. It was a temporary position, but it just became an actual permanent position. So that's one of the positions that I did want to highlight. Our caseworker is a continuous recruitment position, and our caseworkers are in Children and Family Services. They're not just doing child protective services, which most people associate with that division, but they are also doing foster care casework and adoption casework. They are doing ongoing casework, helping support families in an ongoing way to make sure that they're assisting the family to be more stable and to be able to care for their children the way that they need to. So caseworker is one of the ones that you can apply any time of year, but you do have to take an exam and be reachable on that exam, and I'll talk about that process a little bit more. Clerks are also an entry-level position. We do have a couple clerk positions not open right now, but I did want to mention that. Community service aides are a position that is non-competitive. It is a position that's entry-level in terms of supporting a bunch of different functions. We do hire some people seasonally in the summer to assist with such things as scanning or assisting with the maintenance people or doing some IT work, assisting the IT staff with some things that they need to do, like set up new computers or things like that. So we have some seasonal ones. We have some regular community service aides that are in our Children's Integrated Services Division. There is currently one position open right now, so that position does not require a test. It does require a high school or equivalency diploma, or an equal diploma, how's that? Community service workers are also an entry-level position. So there's all these case aid, community service. I know I sometimes get a little confused. Community service workers are actually outstationed staff. They are part of our agency, but they're in our hubs. So if you've heard of the hubs, they're stationed there to assist with any kind of barriers that are getting in the way for a family in order to be self-sufficient or be more self-sufficient, to make those connections, assist them with the TA paperwork and all of those things that sometimes can be a little overwhelming. So those folks are out in our hubs. Eligibility clerk is also a TA position that is an entry-level position. Information technology specialist. We don't turn those over very much, but that's entry level in our IT world. And maintenance worker is, we only have one of those, and he's been pretty stable for a while, but that's entry level as well. And then we also have program assistant assigned to the quality assurance division. Social services investigator training. We do have a special investigation unit, and those folks are doing fraud investigation work. One of the ones that I wanted to highlight was also our social welfare examiner trainee position, which is entry level for TA. Those are the folks that meet with people and process applications in the TA division. So they're the people that do the work to assist with making referrals over to our partner agency, Workforce New York, to our Pathways to Employment staff. So they're the entry level, and the requirement there is it's an or requirement, so you can have a degree or you can have high school experience, high school degree and 4 years of experience. Generally, that would be 2 years of clerical experience, I'm sorry, in an office setting. So that's an or. And that we don't currently have a list for as well. So right now it's called a non-binding position. So we can hire, and then they will have to take the test and whatnot. I think that those are most of the entry-level positions, but I do want to highlight the ones that are open and then talk a little bit about the process. Will that work?
That's great.
Okay, so I mentioned caseworker. That position does require a bachelor's degree, but there's no specification any longer regarding what degree. There's a very intensive training program on the front end that lasts months. Like, they're gone and then they come back, and then they go again and they come back. So they're gone quite like a week at a time. So there's a pretty intensive training program, so the degree isn't as important as having a degree. So that position, again, continuous recruitment, meaning we take applications all the time. You can apply anytime, and then when the exam notice is put up, you do have to apply to take the exam, sit for the exam, and then be reachable on the exam list. I'll talk a little bit more about that process. So caseworker is one that I really want to highlight in terms of anyone that might have or be on their way to, because you can be on your way to that degree, sit for the exam, and as long as your degree is you actually have your certificate before the exam, you can take the exam. Caseworker, I mentioned. So I did also mention our social welfare examiner trainee. Currently 2 positions are open. Caseworker, there is 1 position open. I should have said that right now. Social welfare examiner trainee, there's 2 positions open. And that requires, I think I just mentioned that it requires either a degree or high school and 2 years. We are actively recruiting for that, and again, that is a non-binding list, so we're in a situation. And then there is a case aid open currently as well. And I don't want to confuse those terms again. So case aid does require a test. It is support staff for our Children and Family Services Division, and that requires just a high school diploma equivalency diploma. Okay. There are things in our process because of our work directly with clients that are additional kind of things. So if any of these positions drive for their work, they are required to have a driver's license. Some of the positions, such as caseworker and case aid, those we do allow other counties surrounding us, people that live there, to apply. So they have to have, if they're from Pennsylvania, they have to have a driver's license. They don't have to have a New York State driver's license. But most of the positions that require all of the positions that require driving require a valid license. We do verify that. We do physicals on all people, including a drug screen, to make sure that we're hiring the right candidates. We also have to do background checks on all of our positions, which include an FBI fingerprint clearance and an E-Verify to ensure that the folks are valid citizens. So there's some additional requirements that the Human Service Agency, because of the type of work we're doing, that we require of all people applying. All of our positions require a lot of soft skills, including, I think we better locked out, including communication. Probably is the one that comes to mind first for me. Just being able to be articulating needs and communicating effectively with all superiors, peers, as well as the client, obviously. So we need people who can write fairly efficiently in a lot of positions, because just the nature of having notes for almost every type of position that I named, we have to have notes in our systems that include our contact information with the client, what we were doing with them that day. So writing skills are kind of a key component. You know, being to work on time. We operate generally 8:30 to 4:30. Most of the positions are 8:30 to 4:30. And they are punch positions, so it's really vital that people are on time. And on the opposite end of that they leave on time. You know, over time we try to monitor that, so we do care about not having people extend their time for their own personal reasons, but also that's extra money. So we do care about being on time, being courteous. There's so much contact in all of these positions with the public. So respect, our values are respect, integrity, and innovation, and respect is a key component. So being courteous and respectful to the public, regardless of what their circumstances, is a vital requirement for every position in our building, even if you're just cleaning the floor. It's very vital that someone coming into our building feels respected and valued. So I mentioned positions. I want to talk a little bit about process. So on our intranet page, and I probably could have had that pulled up, on our county internet page, in the top header is employment. So we're glad that they made that change actually recently. So employment, you had to kind of search around a little bit before. It wasn't hidden, but it was a little harder. Now there's a employment button, and when you click on that, it shows two things primarily. It shows exam announcements, which again are critical if you are in a current position, but also those are open. A lot of them are open exams for the public, so at any time you can take a number of exams, not just for the positions that I've talked about. And so there's deadlines for those exams, and you have to submit an application. The application is basically the same whether you're submitting to take an exam or you're submitting to be hired by us. This is the same form that is also available there. And then our current job postings are all posted there, not just for our division or our department, but all the departments in the county. So some of the titles that I mentioned are in that queue right now, either in the exam section or in the job posting section. Again, if you're taking the exam and you fill this out, there's some instructions there in the application in regard to where you have to take it, and there is a fee. You can submit to waive the fee. There's a form also in that section to submit to have your fee waived. So that's also a possibility. So you submit this. They screen it to ensure that you're meeting basically the quals to allow you to sit for the exam. And then you take the exam, and then we can hire you, again, according to civil service laws. Do you want me to kind of get into that? It's kind of complicated, but I can do a quick overview. Okay, so when we have a list, we have to use the list. And when we get a list, there's a score by fives. So the score comes out by fives. So anything from over 100 if you have veterans credits, and then there's a minimum score, and they're different depending on the job, but there's a minimum score. If you don't score, I'll say 60, for example, then you're not going to end up on the list. So when we have a list, I'm just going to use the example of there's 1, 2, 3 scores. So can I use you guys, the audience? So Kelly, you scored a 95, and David, you scored a 90, and you both scored an 80, and Jimmy over there scored a 75. Okay, so number one is always number one. So even if 2 people scored 95, it's going to go in the order that the application was submitted. that's how it goes. You know, they're equal, but you submitted your application first, so you're gonna be number one. Number one is a standalone, David's a standalone, you guys are in a group. So I can reach all of you, but I can't reach whoever I named him, Johnny, Jimmy. I can't reach him because he's not in either a zone or an individual. So 1 and 2 are individuals, number 3 is a zone, anyone with the same score. Does that make sense? So if we have a number of positions, so just tack this on a little bit, if we have a number of positions, then I can take Kelly and hire her, and then you're number 1, and you submitted your application first, so you're number 2, and you're reachable, you're number 3. And then if I can hire you, I can get to Jimmy as well. So if I have as I have openings, I'm moving people and they're becoming 1 and 2, and then zone 3. I don't know how well I did with that, but
really
that it can be very confusing. But I have the ability to pick any of you, so I could have picked her first, right? I could have taken her first. I don't know your name, so.
Charity.
Hi, Charity. So I could have taken her first. I can pick from that. So there's that whole, that whole stigma around, oh, you'll have to take, yes, I have to take from this. And usually if a lot of people take an exam, there'll be 4 people in the 90s and there'll be, 3 in the 80s or whatever. So, like I said earlier, it usually works out that we're able, if someone is currently in a position, provisional that's called, waiting to take their exam, it usually works out because we're able to take people off and then everyone moves on the list. The application process is the same thing. For anything that's posted continuous recruitment, you can fill it out. You really could fill it out for any position and submit it. Our office does take applications directly, and Amy Wagner is our contact point for that in my little office, in our little offices. So Amy Wagner is, it's A. Wagner at Chemung County NY.gov. I actually don't have her phone number, but I did bring some my business cards, so I'll leave those with folks as well. I believe that I covered your list.
You have 2.
Okay, is there any other questions?
I know when you were talking about some of the positions, you said they may be seasonal.
Seasonal, yes, we do hire
some of your positions full-time or part-time?
We do have a few part-time positions in the entire staffing plan. Are you talking about just seasonal? I don't.
No, full-time versus part-time.
Yes, there are a few part-time positions. Actually, most of our positions are full-time. There is, I'm just kind of running down through this. So there is a part-time community service aide. There's a part-time social service investigator trainee position title. There's a part-time attorney, but that requires quite a bit of education degree. Those are the only ones that are popping out at me. We do employ a lot of full-time folks. Our seasonal folks, we are actively looking at, for some positions for the summer. Our new county executive is very committed to making sure that we're trying to reach some of those folks that are disadvantaged economically. So we actually have been partnering with our Youth Bureau as well as Pathways to Employment to locate a couple people that might be under the guidelines of 200%. Yeah, did that answer your question? Probably more than you needed. Any other questions?
Do the majority of your positions have an educational a basis for qualifications?
So a lot of the positions that I listed early as the entry level don't, but there are a lot of other positions that do. So I did mention our caseworker position as a bachelor's degree. We have the caseworkers at Children's Integrated Services. They're called facilitators instead of caseworkers. That's also a degree. There are positions that you can have an associate's degree, including the program assistant position. The account clerk, you could have a degree, or you could have a high school diploma and some accounting and business experience. So you could have either. The trainee, you can be either have a degree, or you can again have a high school diploma and the 2 years of experience. Support investigators are also degreed people, but they do have that or clause that allows a high school diploma and 2 years experience in accounting, collection, investigation, or business.
So if someone was interested in taking a civil service exam, where would they find materials to know what types of topics will be covered on an exam, or how you study for that?
So there are study guides available. We definitely, for folks that are hired, we do some study sessions, but the material's available as well. But in terms of the general public, I know that when I took my exams, I was able just to go to Barnes & Noble and sit there and like kind of leaf through some of the New York State titles and look for some components that my position was sort of a unique position, but that had some components, because most of the announcements for exams include the descriptors that are key in those guides or those study manuals. So it'll say, it'll have headers, and then will talk about the sub requirement. They're like things that you need to be knowledgeable in. So you can kind of use the exam notice to look for, even probably online, look for similar questions under that umbrella. Does that help? Yeah, so there are guides out there. I know because I used one, so that's a good question though.
Once somebody would get hired with you guys, is it easy to lateral to other positions then also?
Yeah, so when I was saying entry level, so there's a lot of the positions that I mentioned that have then a senior as the next step up. So if you come in as a caseworker, you can become a senior caseworker. If you come in as a social welfare examiner trainee, you become an examiner. Then you can become a senior examiner. You can become, it goes up. So the caseworker title goes to caseworker supervisor grade B, caseworker supervisor grade A. And I'm not going to probably do the right order of the titles in the TA division, but I think it's principal and then head. Yes, I think that's right. Senior, principal, and then head, social welfare examiner. So they keep the kind of the same line there in terms of the words, but they tack on a word. In other positions, there's the ability, there's some positions where you can jump over to another area, another division. So we'll include titles that might be under TA in our accounting division, let's say. That might not be exact, but you can. We try to include titles if there's promotional opportunity. There are also promotional exams, and then some open competitive for those titles. So if internally we don't have a candidate, you can take an exam for senior caseworker, for instance. Open competitive, they call that. If you're taking the promotional exam, you have to have been a caseworker for a certain amount of time.
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming
Oh,
and
thank
sharing
you.
with us. You did a beautiful job.
Okay, thank you.